if you read the papers, right, and you spend your time sort of talking to everybody, this problem and that problem, and everything's getting worse and so forth, this is in fact not true. In fact, things are getting better globally on that little green orb in almost every dimension in ways that are very dramatic and occurring very, very quickly. We have an explosion in innovation that's now occurring at a rate that's mind-numbing. It's so fast, we forget what we didn't used to have. Anybody remember when you didn't have an iPhone or an Android phone and all those apps, right? You've already forgotten. Anyone remember before you had a cell phone? You've already forgotten. Anybody remember when you didn't have a digital camera, when you actually had to develop film? Well, watch the movies from the 1970s and 1980s, right? You'll remember, you were alive then. The rate at which this stuff is happening, the US took 50 years for GDP to double. China did it in 15. It took 60 years for air conditioning to get to 80% of US citizens. I'm sure it was first here, by the way. And it took 10% to get 80% market share for smartphones. It's just that much faster. And we now have these amazing new ways of thinking about things. Think about Uber as rethinking public transportation through the sharing economy. Did anybody think that automobiles could be reimagined? There's been all these marketing programs about reimagining the automobile. Tesla did it. They actually built a different kind of car. They literally reinvented it. And now everyone is figuring out what to do about that. Solar power is now at purchase parity with natural gas, price purchase parity with natural gas. And the US is set to surpass Saudi in oil production within a decade. We're already #1 in natural gas, another technological innovation. Software transforms every market in everything you could imagine, even for like food deliveries to your home. That's how powerful software is. And imagine from a health perspective, we're going to talk about this. Real-time, non-invasive monitoring of your health connected by mobile small devices. That's our future. We'll literally be healthier as a result. And I've become convinced that we sort of need a new language to talk about innovation, power, innovators, job creation, and so forth. It's happening at such a scale and at such a set of impact. It's an interesting quote from an economist named John Halterwenger, who looks at sources of jobs creation. If you're worried about jobs, and Laura and I will talk about that in a minute, quote, "We have found that startups together with high-growth firms, which are disproportionately young, account for roughly 70% of overall job creation in the United States." You want an answer? Here's the answer. Now, scale matters, and scale matters a lot, and we're beginning to see the impact of scale. I call the businessman's lament the following quote: "How do we make our money in a globalized market where scale is everything?" And what we're seeing now are global firms, global brands, global platforms, which are changing the economics, changing in all sorts of different ways, and people have to react, right? And the question is, can they provide an alternative platform? Can they become a regional champion? And so forth. And everybody's sorting this out now. And you think about it. Think about the ruthless efficiency of Amazon or the effectiveness of Apple's product development program. We've already seen the effect of this in the Shenzhen manufacturing, right? As Shenzhen manufacturing took over manufacturing globally. And there's a dichotomy of sort of local control and global platform. What you really want is we all want to be a village and we all want to be in charge of everything, right? So we can make local decisions, right? But in fact, building these platforms and the interconnectedness that this conference is about is how you win. We have to find the balance between the two. People want, I mean, there are, by the way, examples of this. In the country analogy, there are small countries that have done very well. Scandinavia, Denmark, Hong Kong, Singapore, those sorts of things. Think about companies. Think about like Bose, and other sort of specialized product developers that do a fantastic job in a smaller market. It can be done. So the question that I would ask is, as we enter this debate between scale and local control and empowerment, are there a set of human rights and principles of human interaction that could be the basis for real and universal growth, and not just for the economic winners, but everybody else? Because remember, the prices are falling, these things are getting connected, we see what everybody is doing, the good and the bad, right? And that is our future. The second thing I wanted to say was that culture and creativity matters a lot. Marxism is discredited. And it was discredited because, in many ways, it was designed around an agricultural model. Right? The one thing that Marxism sort of failed to properly understand was that innovation could come along and replace an awful lot of the units of production. And it doesn't work in a knowledge economy. And by the way, China works very, very well, as long as you're not a woman, and as long as the air doesn't bother you. Right? So there are scale models that are different from the ones that we're used to, which are also growing very dramatically, and good for them. But you need to create a space for new ideas. You need a place for innovators to work. This, of course, is the genius of Silicon Valley and in the United States, and other countries are now sort of trying to address this. But I would say that you've got to figure out a way to create a place for people to innovate, to fail, to try things. And in those places where they exist, people will do it. That's how strong and bright this future is. You know, if you go back to the original notion of the limited US role, right, 200 years ago, people at some level in Coit way understood this. Go back to the formation of the European Union way back when, 30 years ago. Again, limited powers, spaces, innovation, different approaches. The laboratories of innovation are not necessarily global and single-sourced. So can we imagine, and of course there's this stifling effect of sort of rules, right? You have a fight between hawks and doves, and inevitably the downside, regulators try to prevent it rather than accepting the fact that there will be some kind of an impact. And I think we're going to work through these because the opportunities are so fantastic that we're talking about. So what I want you to do is I want you to imagine a little bit for a minute or two, what does the world look like at the rate at which things are coming? Let's talk about personalized medicine. Sequencing, that is in the case of sequencing, I mean DNA sequencing, which will today, and Craig can talk about this later, you know, the sort of retail price is about $1,000. The real cost is, you know, sort of $500. Most people think it will get to $100. It's following faster than Moore's law scaling. Find it, literally sequence everything living and find out what drug will work specifically for you, to analyze outcomes for you, right? To figure out exactly what solution for whatever ailment you have and fix it for good. The biologists have developed a technology called CRISPR, which is a way to use biology to go in and actually turn on and off and modify cells, right? These are the kinds of innovations that are going on literally right now and will continue for a while. What about transportation? Right, I've been in the Google self-driving cars, and aside from freaking me out, they're safer than me driving. They follow a little closer, but they see a little faster. That laser is faster than my aging vision, trust me. And so the fact of the matter is we know that technology is going to happen. It's just a question of whether the regulators will allow us to make it happen. And every time we get that stuff out, we save lives. We don't hurt people, we help people. And if you know, if you have a family member or a friend who was killed in an automobile accident here or in Europe or anywhere in the world, you know why we're doing that. And by the way, the one after that, and I'm not kidding, is transportation in the air. There's a new generation of much more powerful electric motors, much more powerful lithium-based batteries, and much more sophisticated hovering systems, multi-bladed, think of them as multi-bladed small helicopters that will whisk us around. And by the end of our lives, it's reasonable to expect that people have discovered that we can't build more roads and so forth in cities, but we can use the airspace, right? And you'll see that in our lifetimes. In education, right, something which has been resistant to change for a very long time. Think about lifelong learning tailored specifically to you, where in fact you talk or the computer somehow interacts with you by talking to you or asking you questions or whatever, and it figures out where the gaps are for the special skills that you have, for the things you want to do and the things that you're capable to do, and it figures out that unique opportunity that just this one little gap filling will fill. That's all in development right now. Think about in automation, right? What is the story of the last 100 years? 100 years, people were dying in factories, especially children. Today, those jobs and repetitive tasks, the ones which injure human beings, are largely being eliminated by very sophisticated automation. And that, of course, continues. And of course, it's interesting that the people who run the robots are paid more than the people who are replaced by the robots. Again, another part of that story. Think about biology, synthetic biology, and the ability to computationally simulate what life will look like. as we figure out how to solve all sorts of new problems, whether it's productivity or health. Manufacturing, a new generation of materials, very light, that basically solve the problems of energy consumption and global warming. The easiest way to solve many of these problems is have cars that are a factor of 10 lighter that are just as safe. And that technology is on the way. Smart power grids, right? Enormous amount of power is wasted in the world. And again, using principles of the internet, new principles and algorithms, we can even do that. So to me, when I look at that and I say there's a real partnership coming between humans and the products, machines, thinking, networks that we build, that partnership makes us safer and stronger. But the real revolution is in helping us think. We're very, very close to being able to solve vision, text recognition, and speech recognition. When that happens, the computer scientists, the people who do this just based on numbers, can begin to build systems that are extraordinary, right? I imagine that in 5 years, I'll be able to use, and I'll choose this, so I will choose this, to have a program that reads my mail and replies for me in my idiom, right? It sounds like Eric, and it's got, did you want to go to Venice or did you want to go to Arizona? Well, I have to go to Arizona. It's more important, and I work all the time, or whatever. The ability to summarize, the ability to sort of read everything going on and give you an accurate summary, a hugely important facility. An ability to myth bust, to look deeper. I'm especially looking forward to using that in the political realm. But over this while, and again, with your permission, with your buy-in, with every conceivable privacy protection, and a lot of encryption to keep those NSA folks out, we're going to sort of think of it as outsourcing almost, it's a way of outsourcing aspects of your brain. That literally the things that you have spent so much time trying to remember, we can put somewhere else. And then again, with privacy and with this computation, we can help you just be smarter. When you think about it, the experiences that we have in this model will be captured and transformed in memories that we can use forever. We will be incredibly smarter and will have amazing IQs. That impact along, right, in terms of the ability, is what we need to spend a lot of time working on. Because the way we'll get through all of the challenges, we're just going to be smarter. When you think about this, what our choices are, and there's so much investment going on around the world, what are the right positions to take? You can have growth, and you can have growth under principles. Growth in the knowledge economy, in science, in energy. You have to understand that some problems can't be solved today, but maybe they'll be solved by people in the future. We should work on them now, but some problems are really hard. But no one would have expected 100 years ago that we'd have solved so many problems today. You want to focus on cities, right? The infrastructure and knowledge engines of our future, and the infrastructure to make cities globally even more effective, to make them even more impressive, and I mean broadly defined cities. And let innovation in all forms occur, and then the social services and so forth take care of the people who are affected by it, because the innovation itself provides great economic value. There's a sort of a stereotype of America, and the stereotype is capitalism without a heart. And there's a stereotype of Europe, which is heart without capitalism, right? Those are stereotypes. Why don't we do both? Why don't we take the principles that I'm talking about and do capitalism and heart? You have all the tools necessary, all the principles, you have all the knowledge systems, you have all the universities, and you have amazingly talented people who want to go at this. Let's empower them and make it happen. Thank you very much.